So, welcome back, Zen, to part 3 in the series of the Art of Quantum Miracles. What are we going to talk about today, Zen?
Well, I want to talk about how there's so much science backing up that we are conscious creators. It has been amazing to watch over the past 10 years, incredible studies being done by people like the Institute of Noetic Science and some of this, Yakimoto, the Japanese person who did water, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And, people like Greg Braden, Dawson, Church are just finding that that our minds, these thoughts and these emotions that we have, they actually affect the world around us and make it in a quantifiable way. So that the more that you have science, some people behind something that you can throw at your mind, because it's our mind that gets in the way of all of this stuff, with its doubt and its belief systems and trying to keep us safe, but it gets in the way of us being able to be fully expanded and present as conscious creators. So an interesting thing is, for instance, they found that throughout our day, our genes and the expression of a gene is turning off and on. Our DNA is not fixed. Have you heard about this?
I absolutely. When Angelina Jolie had her breasts removed because she had that gene, I think I hit the floor. I mean, she was perfectly healthy. She didn't have to expect that just because she carried that breast cancer gene, she didn't have to go mutilate herself. But that's my own personal opinion. But that's why, because just because you carry that gene doesn't mean you're going to turn it on.
That's right. It's absolutely true. However, her worrying about it every day and leaving her 6 kids behind would have turned that gene on. It's our thoughts. When they talk about thoughts that are turning on and off the expression of our genes, it truly is what we believe that creates that shift. And that shift in one day, you can go. They've watched gene expression in the lab. In one day of shifting somebody's thoughts, they watch genes turn off, putting them through protocols. So some of these protocols are called the EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, which we use in the Quantum Miracle course. I teach people EFT and how to do it for themselves and do it with our clients in our coaching sessions when you hit something, so we can do that. Also, neuro-linguistic programming works. Hypnosis works beautifully. Meditation as well. In sort of relating, meditation takes a little bit longer and is not as powerful. But then also the internal guidance system. What I've found is that neuroscientists that I've worked with and talked to, they believe that when you pivot from a closed expression of your internal guidance system, which if you haven't listened to part 1 of this series, I talk all about that and give you an experience of it, so I'd go back and check that out. But when you pivot from an opening in your internal guidance system from a closing to an opening, it's your nervous system, and that nervous system in connection with our thoughts reprograms the neural pathways in the brain. So the thought that you had, which was a belief or an emotional experience that is going on in your life, it begins to be removed. That pathway will die as long as you focus on the new opening. And what's interesting in the students that I've worked with, they could have a belief for years going on, and that it closes them. They've been stressed out, anxiety-ridden, which is all closing, right? Fearful. When they find the opening, it's so present and powerful as a level of knowing and discernment instantly that their mind can't convince them that thing's going to actually happen anymore. As soon as they go back to that thought, that's a habit, they go, no, that's not true, and they switch back. So that there's a built-in system within the internal guidance system that moves them forward with the new neural pathway in their mind. Isn't that cool?
That is really beautiful. So this can take something that's been years of habit or loops in the brain and sort of change that?
Yes. Thousands of people that I've worked with and done these online courses around the world are having instant results. I mean, okay, I'll give you one that sounds really mundane, but it's really fun. One of my students, she and her husband had been in a brawl, not physically, but emotionally and mentally, for several years, like 10 years, over him leaving the garage door open, right? And she would come home, and this sounds like, it sounds funny, and I laughed too when she was telling me, I really want to work on this with my IGS, and I laughed, and she goes, no, really, you don't understand. every time I come home and the garage door's open, I walk in the house and I'm angry with him, and our night is ruined. And I tried to get over it, but it's like this incessant nagging thing that he doesn't respect my opinion or care about me. And I was like, okay, well, let's do it. So we're working on in coaching, and I said the place to start is it any of your business whether the garage door is open or closed? Hold the thought. And she's like, is it any? And she goes, oh my gosh, I closed. That means it's none of my business. I said, right. But my things are going to be stolen. And when I coach with people over a phone in our group sessions, I tune into their internal guidance system so I can feel it. And she goes, but our things will be stolen out of the garage. I mean, he'll leave it open all day. She goes, oh my gosh, I just closed. That's not true. I opened now. That's not true. So she said, oh my gosh, we've been fighting over this for over 10 years and I've been wrong the whole time. And of course she went immediately to, gosh darn it, that sucks. That's awful. I hate being wrong. And I was like, I know. And I said, now see if it opens you to apologize. And she goes, I don't want to apologize. And I said, I know, but see if it opens you. She held the thought, I need to apologize to my husband. And she opened. 2 weeks later on our next coaching call, she got on and she said, you've changed our lives. My husband and I have never been happy in our lives. I went and I apologized. He was floored. Every time I see it now, I see it as none of my business. Everything's going to be fine. And here's the interesting part. That came from her programming as a child. That her parents yelled at her and her brothers and siblings constantly about keeping the garage door closed. So there was an innate belief system of fear that had to be done or they were going to lose their things. But they lived out in the middle of the country. There was nobody really around. That nobody ever got to lock their doors or their cars or anything. So when he would go in the house and make a sandwich after working out in the garage and leave the garage door open and she would come home, this whole scenario would roll out. He'd be like, woman, I'm just having a sandwich. I'm going right back out there, and it didn't matter. But it was really, truly not true. It shifted their marriage so dramatically that she still mentions it and says that the IGS saved her marriage.
And this goes back to a little bit about what you were saying. I believe it was in part one that some of these belief systems, that was probably one that was programmed into this woman when she was just a small child.
Very small. This is the way we do it here, is the energy of it, and per family. And then you carry that through life. And the thing is it's those kinds of things. You're shy. You stutter. It's hard to make money. Girls, women don't get paid more than men. There's all these different ideas that we kind of just naturally pick up. And fascinatingly enough, we also pick up much of our emotional experience. So what'll happen is, let's say dad comes home and he's angry about something, and then mom reacts by going in her room and shutting the door and getting into a place of depression. Even though she may not, the little girl or the little boy watching may not have a depressive bone in their body, they'll move into their life and they'll have this depression energy and this feeling of wanting to isolate if there's any kind of struggle. And they got it by watching, when someone comes in or there's a challenge, you go away and hide, and that's what makes it better. But it's not their particular strategy, and it doesn't work for them. And it shows up in their career, it shows up in their relationships again, and we can clear those things. So that's the other thing I wanted to mention is the science is proving that things like visualizations actually do change things. That's where hypnosis and EFT, emotional freedom technique, neurolinguistic programming, that's why these things are showing up as actually having true impact. Science is proving that. So I do an exercise with people where we do a meditation, we find something like that hiding moment, we connect with it, who they got it from, their mom or their dad, or some other, figure between the ages of 0 and 7, collect it all up, and we give it back to the parent energetically, doing these techniques. And then we don't leave it with them. We have them go ahead and give it all the way back through the generations to, I just got chills, to where it dissipates and it disappears. And, and what happens is, I truly do believe this, and I'm not a woo-woo person. I really have become more woo-woo based on the more science in here. I'm a background in technology and as a CEO, and I love practical systems. You can even tell that by what I teach, and I teach system-based thinking. I'm finding that it works. I'm watching people's experiences just transform, and that's not there anymore. And that's one of the things we teach in the Art of Quantum Miracles. And there's many other little practices like that. It doesn't take long. That's the other thing. You don't have to sit down for an hour and do some massive visualization and really excavate everything and get it all out and all that. You don't have to do that. I'm finding 45 seconds to 90 seconds that you can do, like literally in your car driving in traffic when something comes up, or you can do sitting at your desk, or you can even, step away, go to the bathroom for 45 seconds and shift stuff and come back. And it works. It's real. I'm getting chills again. It's totally real. This stuff works. So the way that science is coming in to prove what we've already known, Think and Grow Rich, right? Napoleon Hill. We've talked, there's so many people, philosophers over the years that have brought forth this information. Now science is backing it up. The two are coming together as one. It's a very fascinating time to be alive.
It really is fascinating. And I was thinking as you were speaking how wonderful this is, thinking about, patterns of problems or blocks in families. And instead of, and this is where we talk about it in the metaphysical community, you work on yourself, and somehow using these techniques on yourself can even affect the peace and the relationship and issues in your entire family.
Yes, in fact, it does. And I think that's part of the cool thing is, and I didn't want to go out on a limb and actually say that necessarily, but what I am finding is when you do things that are multi-generational, so we're healing big together as a group, we heal big things, and then we'll call in at that same moment anyone who's been affected by that energy that would like to have it healed.
Mm-hmm.
And people will be in this short meditation and they'll say, oh my gosh, I'm seeing 100, 200, 1,000 people stepping forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then let's do it. And we clear it. And I do truly believe, and I know it sounds crazy, but I'm finding that it is shifting generations. It is alleviating large, as we're doing this work, large energies off the planet that have been through people. So when we hand it back generation to generation back through whoever that came from, they're all being released. They're all being released. And I'm interested to find out how that works. It's so funny, I'll talk about that with you later. I'm curious how our future is being changed by this level of work that's being done around the planet.
My teacher would call that timeline healing.
Yes, and that's what I think is happening, and I really do, and I think that when we're doing this timeline healing, and the more people that do it, and the more people that take charge of that aspect of their beingness for the past generations and the future generations, I do think our actual current world changes.
I believe that's true. Zen, do you feel that things have kind of sped up and shifted just in the last couple of years? I know you've been doing this work for a while, but it seems to me like, things are quickening and more people are understanding some of this and more people are interested in it. Have you found that to be the case as well?
I have, and there's also an urgency that I have been feeling and getting along the way too. It's not an urgency that is uncomfortable, and I've not found another word for it other than urgency, but it's kind of a quickening, exactly as what you're saying. There's an importance. There's a underlying feeling of deep importance that this comes, and more people do it. I know the 100th monkey, I know for a fact, because I know the person who first told that story, and they told me that it's not true. It's one of the most embarrassing things I've ever experienced, but because he thought it was true. It was based on Bronx, but who brought that out into the world. I know the 100th monkey is not a true story, but in my work, I've found that 15 years ago when I started teaching the internal guidance system piece, it was really challenging for people to get. And as more and more people got it and learned and were studying it and using it, the easier it was, and the easier it was, and the easier it was. And some people would say, oh, well, you just got better at teaching it. I don't feel that that's it. Yes, I changed some of my techniques and things. I think that it's taking the awakening to the fact that we've had this GPS is taking root. And my belief is that all of nature already operates into this opening, and they follow the closing and the opening of their IGS. Whales migrate into it. Seeds out of the ground. Even the way our water flows on the planet is into the opening. And everything, every living thing has this expression. And that we humans cut off our expression of this because it's so easy and pleasant. We don't really need our mind. Once you get into it, your mind becomes less and less important. It's just a creative tool to generate your reality. It's not actually who you are at all. And you get that very quickly. So we're being asked now that we've developed our mind to be able to have awareness of all these beautiful things and concepts. We're now being asked in a quickening, urgent way to step back into the internal guidance system so that we can get back in flow with nature on the planet, with each other, so that we can contribute our gifts and who we are to its fullest extension, and so that we can have a joyous experience of changing the things that are creating suffering and unpleasantness on this planet. And it's just a matter of moments of stepping into the opening. And when you do that, and especially when you do that in a group of people or a team, it is so beautiful. Like, you hear about it, and when there's devastating accidents around the planet, and then the aftermath, like New York, 9/11, everybody talked about how the whole city became graceful and respectful and kind and nurturing, and they took care of one another, and they reached out, and it was a very unique, beautiful, powerful time of grace and gratitude in the city. And I think that's what it's going to feel like as more and more of us get tuned into this expression of ourselves and learn the manifestation techniques that work. I think it's going to feel like that as we shift all of the things on the planet that we know are no longer, that need to be hospiced and no longer fit with our world.
Well, that's a beautiful wrap up to this segment of the art of quantum miracles. You know, next time when we wrap it up in part 4, I'd really like for you to talk about, because a lot of our listeners are, healers themselves, or involved in the healing arts, or experience many of those different things. And as you're speaking and talking about this work and how it fits into groups, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about how that could help somebody in their own healing practice to learn some of these secrets and tips that you teach in the art of quantum miracles. Okay?
Great. Yes.
Well, we'll see you in part 4 next time. Thanks so much for being here, and tell us how people can find you, Zen.
You can go to zeninAmoment.com, and there you'll find more, you'll find blog posts and more information, and also information on the art of quantum miracles.
Thanks so much for being with us, Zen. See you next time.
Thank you.